Blaine Fowler on the program. Blaine, BYU opens the season on August 30th against Portland State. Again, we've known about the non-conference games for a while, but then you look at what the Big 12 revealed today, opening the conference slate at Colorado, but clearly everyone's circling October 18th and saying, Utah, homecoming, mid-October, why? What do you think about that matchup there? And we'll start the conversation with the rivalry game.
I don't like where it is. I think I've been pretty plain to say I want that game on an afternoon on Thanksgiving weekend on Saturday. But that's selfishly for what I want, and for what we all want, for the fans and for the local rivalry. If I'm Brett Yormark and I'm looking at it, I get it. I get that if you're wanting to market this league, do you really want the marquee matchup? So the really the best rivalry in the league now with the teams that have left. It's the best rivalry in the league. It's the most heated rivalry in the league. Do you really want it to compete with Ohio State and Michigan and Auburn and Alabama and all these big national rivalry games? Or do you want it on a weekend when it may be the biggest game in the entire country? So from a league perspective, I get the thinking. I don't know if they even thought that deeply into it, but if I'm Yormark and I'm trying to promote the league, I want my biggest games on weekends when all eyeballs will be on it. So do I like it there? No, I don't love it there. I don't love that they play Utah and then go immediately on the road, because Utah, no matter how good or bad they are on a given year, and I do feel like they're going to be in the middle of the league this year just because brand new offensive coordinator, brand new quarterback. They're always going to be great on defense. So I don't think it's like, oh, they're the best team in the league and BYU has to play them. But I think it doesn't matter where they are. It's going to be a tough game for BYU, and then they got to turn around and go on the road at Iowa State the very next game. So those two things combined, I don't love it, but I get it. If I'm the league, I get it. If I'm Yormark, I'm good with it. So I see both sides of this one.
I don't want logic here, Blaine. I want emotion. I want BYU
emotionally, you guys know, and I've said I want it Thanksgiving weekend on Saturday at 1 o'clock. That's what I want, But
what's an
if I'm
afternoon
thinking outside
game?
objectively, I get it. So it's weird. It's a weird time for me. But when I take it all into consideration from outside of my own wants, I think it probably makes sense to the league.
It is interesting too, because that starts, as you mentioned, this tough 3-game schedule. It's all tough. You're in Power 4 conference. Right, Utah at home, at Iowa State the next week, bye week, at Texas Tech. In fact, there's a 7 or 8 week stretch where BYU's only home twice. Feels like BYU's going to have to define the season on the road for the most part in the middle of the year.
Yeah, when I look at where the buys are with that, like you mentioned, that really rough stretch, at least the second bye comes and breaks up the back-to-back away games in league. So they don't have back-to-back aways in league, really, because they're at Iowa State. Then they have a bye to get ready to go to Texas Tech. So I think that's a strategically placed bye for BYU. I just wish the first bye was a week or two later. In fact, even if it was just right after the East Carolina game. So you finish the preseason, you kind of figure out who you are, and now you got to get ready to go on the road and play in Folsom Field at Colorado. And to have an extra week to kind of regenerate and get ready for league play, that to me, that would be the ideal place for that bye. I don't know that it does them that much good, right after Stanford before they go to East Carolina. And then they go all the way to the East Coast, and then they have to come back and go on the road to Colorado. And mind you, I don't like, if I'm ranking my preseason, I don't have Colorado at the top of the league. I have them in maybe the top 5 or 6. But just because it's really difficult to replace a first-round draft pick quarterback and a Heisman Trophy winner at wide receiver. I don't care how much talent they have, and they do have a bunch of talent, and they tapped into the transfer portal again. So it's going to be a crazy talented team as usual. But Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are so dynamic. To replace them is going to be a difficult task. So BYU has a bye before that East Carolina game, which I don't think they need. I wish they had the bye before the Colorado game, but maybe Colorado's not as imposing as it might seem. I love the rematch. There's going to be a ton of eyeballs on that one, but really, how often does the team have to replace 2 players that dynamic and have that much impact on the game? So I don't know that Colorado's right at the top of the league again this next year.
Blaine, I'll tell you what I love about this. Looking at the first 6 games, I feel like 5-1 is incredibly feasible for what BYU brings back and what they're going to face. Again, I know there will be some wild cards in there. Some teams will be better than we think they're supposed to be. There will be good teams that are not as good as we think they're going to be. But I believe that 5-1 is a very attainable goal. And BYU, we believe, is going to start somewhere in the top 20 rankings. So how do you see that? And the first 6 and BYU hanging around in the rankings, is that too ambitious of me to hope for in that regard?
No, I actually see a pathway to 6-0 going into the Utah game. Just because, as I mentioned, I think Colorado is going to be really talented, but I think it's going to be hard to replace those two. And so I don't, if I'm looking at my top teams in the league, I think Iowa State is back there with Rocco Beck. They've got they're always going to be one of the most physical teams in the league. They're always going to play great defense. They need to retool at wide receiver. But I've got Iowa State right up there. I've got BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Arizona State as my top 4 in the league. In that order: BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Arizona State. I think Baylor coming on and Texas Tech are right up there at the top of the league. So, they don't play Texas Tech until November 8th. I think Texas Tech is going to be really good, especially if Baron Morton comes back from shoulder surgery healthy. Iowa State, who I think is going to contend for a title again next year with Beck back at quarterback. That's not until October 25th. Utah's got a brand new offensive coordinator and a brand new quarterback. I think he's really dynamic, but he's taken a step up in competition. I'd rather play Utah for that reason earlier than later. I think Utah's going to be much better at the end of the season than they are at the beginning. They'll be better in the middle than they are at the beginning, but even better at the end. So maybe it's not a bad thing to play them October 18th. And as I look at that, West Virginia coming to Live Outdoor Stadium is not an easy thing to do. As physical and as good as they've been, but they got Rich Rodriguez back. They're going to be feeling their way out with a brand new coach. So I look like there's a pathway to 6-0 to start the season, and then Utah's at home. So why not 7-0 as you go on the road to Iowa State? And I think Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU is a really rough run right there. I'm not saying they're going to be 6-0, but I'm saying that is not a crazy thought to think that they can start 6-0. It's not crazy at all.
Blaine Fowler with us on BYU Sports Nation. Jarom's got the blue goggles out, Blaine.
Let's go.
Let's go.
There you go, baby.
6-0, baby.
Yeah.
7-0. Let's go.
Hey. What we've learned is the margin of victory and losing in this league is slim. How many games did BYU win down the stretch, right? So I'm not saying they're going 6-0 or 7-0.
I am. Let's go.
But I'm telling you, there's a chance, guys. BYU has enough coming back. They're loaded on defense, and this is year 3 with Jay Hill. So they're going to be in every single game, even against the best teams. So they're loaded on D. And when you have your starting quarterback coming back as a senior at BYU, their entire running back core and all of that, they're going to be in good shape.
Blaine, it's great to catch up with you, man. Let's do it again soon. Big basketball again tonight. I know you're looking forward to that. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you guys all tonight.